Shabbat Shalom, good Shabbos, everyone. Welcome to everybody here at Congregation Kol Ami in West Hollywood, and to everyone who's joining us online, either on Facebook or on YouTube or our temple website. We wish you a Shabbat Shalom. We're so glad you're here for this Shabbat Lech Lecha. Let us begin with music. Maestro? This week in our Torah portion, we read the story of Abram and Sarai and the beginning of their journey, the journey that takes them from Haran, which is today in Syria, in northern Turkey, and moves through their journey towards the promised land. This going forth, it says, go forth from your ancestors' land to the land that I will show you. We are still on that journey of spirituality, that journey of faith, that journey of renewal, that our ancient ancestors, Abraham and Sarah, which is their names after God changes their names, began so many centuries ago. So as we celebrate this Shabbat together, let us think about that journey of truth and justice, of faith and hope, of renewal, of strength and of healing. Tonight we celebrate Pink Shabbat, it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we are delighted to learn and to understand and to support all of our families and members and community members who have struggled or are continuing to struggle with breast cancer and ovarian cancer. And we're going to learn a little bit tonight from an incredible expert about the Jewish connection to breast cancer. So as we do that, let us lift up our hearts first in prayer and thanksgiving as we learn a new piece of music for Kol Ami. Rabbi, teach us.
Thank you. So we're going to be doing this piece called Chazak by Dan Nichols, and the Hebrew that is in it, Chazak, Chazak, Venit Chazek, is traditionally what is chanted and said upon completing both of the Torah as we transition. But I thought it would be fitting for this Pink Shabbat as a way of thinking about the strength that we can give one another when we're struggling, and we know that breast cancer and various forms of cancer is something very common that many of us deal with. Many of us have friends and loved ones and family members who have struggled with it, and I'm hoping that this can be a little bit of strength by joining together in song, by joining together as one community. We can bring strength to one another. It is a new piece for many of us here, and I think by the end of it, you'll get the chorus. We're going to do it a few different times, but please feel free to sing along. The words can be found in the insert for your service. We have come from... Oh, I'm in the wrong key. That's my problem. There we go. We have come from near and far to raise our voice in song. And the more we join in the refrain, the more we feel strong. Chazak, Chazak. Venit Chazek. As we sing, we link ourselves to those who came before, and we're one with all those yet to come. our strength it will endure. Be strong and let us strengthen one another. Be strong and let us celebrate our lives. Be strong and let us strengthen one another. Chazak, chazak. Be strong and let us strengthen one another. And be strong and let us celebrate our lives. Be strong and let us strengthen one another. Chazak, chazak. Be strong. Be strong and let us strengthen one another. Be strong and let us celebrate our lives. Be strong and let us strengthen one another. Chazak, chazak. Be strong and let us strengthen one another. Be strong and let us celebrate our lives. Be strong and let us strengthen one another. Chazak, chazak. Then chazak.
We turn now to welcoming Shabbat, and it is my really privilege and honor to invite my friends Jeremy and Devin to light the Shabbat candles on this Shabbat before their wedding. Page 120 and 121 in our prayer books, and if you're online, you can follow along in the flipbook version at ccarpress.org and go to the coronavirus resources page, and you can click on Shabbat prayer book for Shabbat. Page 120 and 121. Please. Let me turn that on for you, though. Read that English at the top of the page here. Hold it around.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us.
As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'chadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. We turn to page 123. I'm going to invite Jeremy and Devin to come back up. I'm not done with you yet. The rabbi's got a few tricks up her sleeve for our wedding couple. Devin, if you hold the Kiddush cup for us as we raise our voices together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho v'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron l'maaseh v'reshit ki hu yom techila למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי באנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת, מכל Chaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat L'chaim. You can drink that grape juice. And then we're going to come in front of the ark. Getting married once was not enough for you, Jeremy. But this weekend will be twice. Not because of trouble in your house, but because of COVID. And now your Jewish wedding. You'll stand together under the chuppah and exchange the words of Jewish tradition that will continue to celebrate the incredible depth of love and commitment and relationship that the two of you have created together. Let me pray. Makor Chayim, source of all life, we ask your blessings for Devin and Jeremy. We pray that the sacred commitments of their wedding day will sustain them all the days of their life. May the love that binds them be everlasting, and let their hearts be filled with patience and understanding. May their home be a mikdash me'at, a sanctuary built on devotion to God, Torah, and Israel. May they be blessed with health and courage as their love and friendship deepens throughout the years. We pray that they will enjoy good fortune, and most of all, dear God, grant them shalom, peace together. We join in the ancient blessing of our people. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May God bless you both and keep you. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichuneka. May God's light shine upon you both and be gracious to you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May the Holy One of blessing grant to you and to all those you love a life of health and joy and wholeness, and that very ancient gift of shalom, peace in your heart, in your home, and in our world. And together we say, Ken Yehi Ratzon, so may it be God's will. And we wish for you a Siman Tov and Mazel Tov. Mazel Tov.
Siman Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov,
Now you can sit
Siman
down.
Tov, Siman Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Siman Tov, Siman Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Siman Tov.
Yehelanu, 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 Ulecho Yisrael. Yehelanu, Yehelanu, Ulecho Yisrael. Yehelanu, Yehelanu, Ulecho Yisrael. Yehelanu, Yehelanu, Ulecho Yisrael. We've celebrated our Kala and the Khatan, the bride and the groom, and now we usher in the Shabbat bride as we sing together L'chadodi. If you'll turn now to page 138. Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela,
Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamur v'zachor v'dibur echad, Yishmi'anu elam yuchad. Adonai echad, u'shemo echad, L'Shem u'tiferet v'letzilah. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה, מהראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
We rise to greet the bride of Shabbat, verse 9.
בואי בשלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצולה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Our custom is to turn and greet one another. Shabbat Shalom. Good Shabbos. Introduce yourself. Take a bow. Take an elbow. Shabbat Shalom online. We're so glad you're with us here at Congregation Kol Ami. Shabbat Shalom, Ronnie, if you're watching. I love you guys.
Page 146, we remain standing for the call to worship the Baruch Hu. Delighted tonight. Not only part of tonight is also about talking about breast cancer from the perspective of those who have fought and survived, and for families who have supported one another in their struggle. And so I'm honored to invite one of our founding members, Dr. Marilyn Ader, to share just a few brief words tonight in reflection. Thank you, Marilyn.
Founding members, Kim Bergman, was up in the bima. And Kim said something that sounded a little bit odd to me. She said, as many of you know, about 10 years ago, I, meaning Kim, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. What you may not realize is that I'm here to say now that I, Kim, believe that this was one of the best things that ever happened to me in my life. Now, when she said that, that seemed a little bit odd, so I was thinking about this as I was sitting in the audience. Within 2 months, probably about 6 weeks from sitting in the audience, listening to Kim, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So it is now virtually a certainty that I was listening to Kim's words with breast cancer while I was hearing it. Now, this was found on a screening exam. It was really out of the blue. There was no family history or very, very minimal family history. And I was notified when I was actually in Boston at a conference. So obviously I left early and I got to the airport in Boston. And I was sitting in the Delta Lounge contemplating the news, certainly still in shock. It was less than 24 hours. And in the Delta Lounge, in walks another Kol Ami founding member, Lauren Ostro, who just happened to be in Boston, leaving Boston in a, quote, chance meeting, unquote. And Lauren is one of the most gentle souls I could ever imagine, and so we were able to talk a little bit about what I thought was going to happen to my life. Well, by the time I got home, shock quickly shifted to action, as it should. Found a doctor, determined a strategy. And I realized very early on, without even thinking about it, that once I had my team, I trusted my team. Now, as many of you know, I'm a scientist, and it's very hard for me not to feel like I have to be the expert, and I have to know everything, or at least try to find things out. But for some strange reason, I had no problem at all not being the expert and letting them do what they knew needed to be done, and all I had to do was just do what I was told. So there was the treatment phase, chemo, surgery, radiation, and thank God I tolerated everything incredibly well. And I was lucky to be able to stay involved at work. I've worked with the same people for decades. So it was my social connection. It was intellectual stimulation. I had a purpose. It's harder to feel sorry for yourself when you're getting up and being involved in a lot of your old projects. But the real thing I want to talk about is really, so how did all this affect me? How did it affect me then? And really, how does it affect me now? Because when you're going through a treatment, all you have to do is the treatment. You don't have time to really think of anything else. So now it's, 7 years or so. So I now realize that I was incredibly arrogant about my own health, that I was somehow sort of protected at the time that I had been diagnosed and was getting that shock. Because at the time, both of my parents were in their 90s, and my father only recently passed away at age 97, and mom's 95. They were remarkably healthy. I have healthy older brothers. I have a strong constitution. But I also realized that the diagnosis incredibly humbled me, because I realized that there are very few of us, and perhaps none of us, that go through life unscathed. I would say that the diagnosis and reflecting on the treatment, and now once most of the hiccups were behind me, I realized that it woke me up. I realized that I could no longer go through the motions, assuming that I'd have another day or another week or another month or year. It sounds depressing, but it actually isn't. It's incredibly exhilarating, because now you can soak up everything. I can soak up what everyone in this room is wearing. I could soak up the smiles that I envision are underneath every mask. I could soak up the decor. I could soak up the weather. I could make fun of the weather. There is so much to soak up, so now I feel like I have to squeeze everything out of every day and every minute and every second. But I also realize that I now want to celebrate everything, not just the big things, the weddings, sometimes celebrated twice. But I want to celebrate the small things, the putting on the wrong socks with the shoes or whatever it is. I want to laugh a lot. I used to laugh a lot anyways, and now I make a point of it. But I also realized that some of the prayers that we say now became more real. So for years, we've always said the Hashkivenu prayer. We probably will say it again today. Well, this is to protect us when we lie down and to help us wake up. It is really an idea of just not taking everything for granted. And getting up is not always, a sure thing. But now going back to high holidays. So now when I sit in high holidays, as I was lucky enough to do recently, would I stand up and say like Kim did that was one of the best things that ever happened to me? Probably not. But I must admit that the Unatana Tokef prayer sounds very different from me now. Who shall get sick? Who shall not? What I've learned from my breast cancer experience is very, very simple. There are no guarantees. No matter how strong you are, how good your family history is, how careful you are with your diet, or whether you cross the street only at crosswalks, there are no guarantees. So I try to live my life, do my best to make a difference in the world, and don't forget to have fun along the way.
Yasher koach. Thank you, Mary. Thank you for your inspiring words and for teaching us Torah. Let us say words of Torah now and affirm the oneness and the connection that we have not only to our people but to all humanity and to the ultimate one of the universe as we rise for the Shema prayer, page 152.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod, Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam, Leolam Vayeh.
Please be seated together as we sing the words of the V'ahavta, page 154.
Also found in your inserts. Thou shalt love Adonai thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. And these words which I command you on this day shall be upon thy heart, shall be upon thy heart, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and thou shalt speak of them when thou sittest in thy house, when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up, and when thou risest up, and thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thy hand, and they shall be for frontlets in between thine eyes, and thou shalt write them
this Parshat Lech Lecha, we know that Abram and Sarai went on a journey. And so did the Jewish people as they left slavery in Egypt. And they journeyed across the Yam Suf, the Red Sea, towards the Promised Land. So we too remember that moment of freedom and redemption and pray that God will remember us as God remembered the children of Israel. Page 158, we sing the words they sang in celebration and joy at the Yam Suf, at the Red Sea. The central portion of our prayers is the Amidah, the time where we stand in community and support one another, but allow ourselves time to pray, to reflect, to go deeper inside of ourselves to connect with the Holy One of Spirit. And so on page 164, we rise together and we'll begin together. Then we invite you to go on your own journey in prayer and reflection through page 181, or maybe you want to just say words in your own heart on this Shabbat. So together we begin.
Adonai, Sifatai Tiftach, Ufi Yagid, Tevilatecha, Adonai, Sifatai Tiftach,
Make a prayer for healing. Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, God and God of our ancestors, Shema Kolenu, hear our prayer. Grant your healing blessings to all who call upon you, and particularly in our community, we're calling the names of John Altschull, Linda Bachlan, Sophie Belsberg, Richard Bernard, Don Berstein, Tim Bestenheider, Dabby Blatt, Louise and Wayne Cantrell, Jeannie Cole, Olga Drucker, Francine Epstein, Tino Felipe, Paul Morgan Frechteritz, Dorothy Gibson Anderson, Lynette Graves, Don Hollis, Madeline Kent, Jeffrey Lehman, Russell Kirschenbaum, Alan Lank, Jeff Mackler, Deshaun McLean, Tammy Rabowski, Ben Reback, Howard Romanoff, Judy Rosenberg, Lowell Sullivan, Karen Shanbaum, Michael Simmental, Henry Sommerfeld, Suzanne Waldman, Kathy Weiss, Eitan Wolf, Nancy Wortman, Jess Winfield, David Ben Herschel Bavasha. And if there's a name of someone that you'd like to pray for their healing of body or spirit, if you'd call their name aloud or write their name in the chat if you're online with us. Be with all who call upon you in their hour of need, eternal Holy One of blessing, and send your healing love or for refuat nefesh, refuat guf, a healing of body and spirit to all in need. Baruch atah Adonai rofei cholim, praised are you God who heals the sick, and let us all say, Amen. Page 371, we sing the healing prayer.
May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say
Well, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We're so glad you're here with us. And this Pink Shabbat is really in partnership with an organization named Sharsheret, a national nonprofit organization which improves the lives of Jewish women and families living with or increased genetic risk for breast and ovarian cancer through personalized support, and saves lives through educational outreach. I particularly want to thank Jenna Fills, who's the Los Angeles organizer for Sharsheret. And we are delighted to welcome Bita Naharai, who's the senior genetic counselor at City of Hope tonight. She's a licensed board-certified genetic counselor specializing in cancer genetics. She received her master's degree in human genetics and genetic counseling from no slouchy place, Stanford University. She joined the City of Hope Division of Clinical Cancer Genomics in 2012, where she provides cancer genetic services for patients and families suspected to have a hereditary disposition to cancer. She's fluent in Spanish and Farsi and is committed to advancing the provisions of cancer genetic services to medically underserved and culturally diverse populations. We're delighted to have you. If you'll join us here, and you'll have to pause for a minute as I lower our screen because she's prepared a really important PowerPoint for our deck for us tonight so that we can understand the genetic connections of being Jews, and for those of us that are LGBTQ also, the connections there. So Bita, welcome. Give me 1 second here. Okay, I need somebody tall. Who's tall and can help me? David, come here. Everybody online, you'll have to wait a minute. Can you pull the door down? There's a lock here on the back. Thank you. Okay, here we go. Is it coming down? Okay, tell me when to stop. Here we go. Okay, Ross, open that up. Okay, I think we're good. Vita, the floor is yours. Do you have the clicker?
I don't.
Okay, we'll go get that too. We're a little bit unorganized. Ross, is that clicker upstairs? Yeah, he's got it. He'll take care of it. Yeah, this one.
Okay, perfect.
There you go.
All right, well, I'll get started while we're getting the text set up. Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and thank you so much for this warm welcome to Kol Ami, and it's a pleasure to be here. And again, thank you to Jenna with Sharsheret, which is a really great organization for making the connection. And so, you know, the reason that we're discussing, of course, with Breast Cancer Awareness Month, thank you. All right, occurring this month, and the reality is that unfortunately cancer is quite common, and cancer does not discriminate. So a lot of people are affected by cancer, whether personally or their loved ones, as was shared by Marilyn and others. And as you can see, let me see if I can. Here we go. That, you know, cancer, as I said, was very common, particularly these cancers listed here that affect individuals who are assigned female at birth. So you can see, you know, breast, colorectal, lung, and cervical endometrial cancers are those most common cancers affecting these individuals with pretty significant lifetime risks, which is why screening is so important. Oftentimes it may be overlooked or there may be limited access, but it's really, really so important to engage in screening, particularly for these cancers where screening is recommended. So that's something that's important, and breast, let me see if I can see here, and I might come around if that's okay. We can try, or I can, yeah, just go ahead. I'll improvise. But you know, oh, there we go. Yeah, maybe not. Oh, there we go. So breast, cervical, endometrial, and ovarian cancers are actually particularly more common, or individuals who are lesbians are at an increased risk. And a lot of that is still being understood, but some of the possible considerations or reasons for this increased risk may be due to certain lifestyle factors that are more common in these individuals, whether it be smoking, alcohol, body weight. So it's really important, you know, there are so many things in our lives that we don't necessarily have control over, but these are things that we can work on, and of course, cancer screening and access to health care. And while I'm gonna be talking about genetics, it's really just one piece of the pie, as you can see. So there we go. Most of the time, though, cancer is not hereditary. So while I focus and I speak with individuals and families who are at risk for an hereditary cancer predisposition, by and large, only about 5 to 10%, sometimes at most 15% of cancers are due to an inherited cause. And specifically what we're talking about here, a single gene change that has been passed down over generations in a family that is increasing cancer risk. And so for most individuals, families that are affected by cancer, we don't necessarily have an explanation, but for a subset of these individuals, we do. All right. And so there are certain things that you want to keep an eye out for. I like to tell people that, Thanksgiving is actually Family Health History Day, so it's always great to talk to your family members in the fall and learn more about your family history and the stories of your family as well. But some of the things that we consider when there's an inherited or potential for an inherited predisposition to cancer are, of course, if we see cancer at young ages, so particularly cancer under the age of 50, less common types of cancers, multiple individuals in a family with cancer, certain patterns of cancer, but then also ancestry comes into play, which we'll discuss as well. And so when we suspect that there might be something inherited, we often will move forward or discuss the possibility of genetic testing. And genetic testing is a personal choice, but genetic testing is essentially doing almost like a spell check of your genes, is how I like to describe it. So it's looking through your own personal blueprint that you inherit from your parents. And we all have 2 copies of each of these genes, one from each parent, and looking to see if someone carries a mutation, just like a spelling error, in one of these 2 genes. And so a hereditary cancer or an inherited predisposition to cancer can occur if someone inherits a copy of a gene that carries this particular mutation. So here's an example here of the BRCA1 gene that we'll talk about with 2 copies, one from each parent. And you can see that the one on the right has a mutation. And it's really important to understand that having a mutation doesn't necessarily mean that you will develop cancer or that you have a cancer diagnosis, but it really just means that there's an increased risk for cancer. And that's where it becomes important to think about, well, what are the interventions or things we can do to manage that particular risk? And so some reasons that folks may consider genetic testing, particularly in the era of precision medicine, is learning about targeted therapies for people who are going through cancer diagnoses and thinking about more precise treatments for better outcomes, but also thinking about when earlier or more frequent screening would be indicated based on these genetic risk factors. Preventative measures that can be taken, whether it's medications, surgeries, or other things that can be done to reduce risk. And then also to understand for risk for family members as well and to share that information so that others can seek the preventative care. And if someone carries a mutation, there's a 50% chance that their children or their brothers or sisters may also have inherited this particular gene change. And so that's where this becomes relevant as we think about genetic testing for family members and identifying these risk factors. So I want to talk a little bit about the BRCA1 and 2 genes. And these genes stand for breast cancer gene 1 and breast cancer gene 2. Well, I went to Stanford. I went to Berkeley before, so some people say it's Berkeley, California, where those genes where the BRCA1 gene was initially identified. But these particular genes are what I like to think of as almost like cancer-fighting genes. So again, we all have 2 copies. If one of those copies carries a mutation, less protection, and so higher risk for certain types of cancers. And so here are some examples of the types of cancers that you can see. And you can see the marked difference between risk. So whereas the average individual who's assigned female at birth has a risk of breast cancer of 10%, it can be as high as 50 to 80% for someone who's a BRCA carrier. And that's where there are interventions that we want to take, whether it's starting screening as young as in the 20s or considering preventative surgery like a bilateral mastectomy. Similarly for ovarian cancer, I'd love to say that we have effective screening tools for ovarian cancer, but we unfortunately don't. So this is a circumstance where we would talk about risk-reducing surgeries. And there are also other cancers. And so it's important to realize that these genetic mutations can happen in anyone, regardless of their background. And so there may be other risks relevant as well that you want to consider. And so there's a lot of verbiage on this slide, but what I wanted to discuss a little bit more is the reality is that while we understand a lot about how we want to manage or how best to manage individuals who have an increased risk for cancer based on these genetic risk factors, we have a lot to learn as far as best ways to modify risk or address risk for people who are either folks who are transgender or gender diverse. And so there may be additional nuances or considerations you want to take into mind and discuss with your healthcare provider if that is the case. And the reason for that is there may be things, obviously, whether it's gender affirming therapies or surgeries that someone may seek out that would be good or relevant to know about as it relates to cancer risk. So some examples might be if someone has an elevated breast cancer risk and considering bilateral mastectomy, well, that surgery is going to be very different than someone who's having chest reconstruction because it may leave tissue that is at risk. And so you'd want to consider either modifying your surgical approach or thinking about cancer screening in that circumstance. Hormone therapies too. We have a lot to understand about how hormones can impact cancer risk for people that are going through gender affirming care. And understanding sort of how that interplays and best approaches. Similarly, cancer screening, as I shared before, but then also the reality that while genetic testing is a very personal choice, there can often be pressure for individuals to undergo genetic testing because of the process by which going through gender affirming care, where providers may pressure folks. So all of these things, as well as reproductive and family planning considerations. And then the reality is, right, I said 5 to 10% of these cancers are hereditary. So most often when people undergo testing, they're not going to have a mutation. So it's important to also consider family history as that risk factor in understanding if there are other things you should be doing for screening as well. And so the Jewish connection, so while I shared that these mutations, these things are rare, as an example, about 1 in 400 to 1 in 500 people will carry a BRCA mutation. Someone who's of Ashkenazi Jewish descent has about a 10-fold increased risk to carry a mutation. So it's about a 1 in 40 chance. And the reason for that is because of the founder effect. So if we're thinking about something that's occurring really rare in a population, and then suddenly that community, that population is impacted where it's significantly decreased. So thinking about pogroms, right, the diaspora, all of these things that affect Ashkenazi Jews and other Jews in the diaspora. And then we expand that population over time, well, the frequency of these mutations becomes more common. So it's not necessarily that individuals who are Ashkenazi Jewish are at an increased risk off the bat for breast or ovarian cancer, but it's more so that there's a higher chance of carrying one of these genetic risk factors that makes you more susceptible. And so the threshold for when we consider genetic testing for someone who's Ashkenazi Jewish is much lower. So much though, and in places like Israel, they advocate for testing everyone, regardless of family history. And so that's where it becomes really important to have these discussions with your family members and your healthcare providers. And so BRCA1 and 2 is just, they're just one piece of the pie, albeit a very large piece of the pie. So while, again, 5 to 10% of cancers are hereditary, and most of them are due to BRCA1 and 2, there are other genes now that have been discovered that can influence cancer risk. And so that's also important to keep in mind. And this is a depiction of breast cancer, but you can picture sort of the same for colon cancer or for others. And so for that reason, genetic testing, it can be done in a myriad of ways. While it's often done by a collection of your saliva or blood, there are different types of genetic tests, and a lot of that based on your family history or other factors will help decide what that approach is. Some people may be just getting tested for a mutation that's been identified in their family. Other people may be doing broader multi-gene panels to assess for various cancers, various levels of risk, and then depending on what is found, we would discuss cancer screening recommendations or other interventions. And so with that, thanks for listening while I deal with those tech issues, but I want to just thank you so much for the invitation, and happy to talk to folks who have questions. And of course, thanks again for the connection with Sharsheret. So,
Thank you so much for that. So important for us to, I'll take it. So important for all of us to pay attention and to understand the risks and risk factors. So we appreciate your time and attention tonight on this issue. And I'm going to invite Johanna Shore forward, a member of our Board of Trustees, who has some words of welcome. And we'll put up this. I'm going to put up the screen while you're doing that, Johanna.
thank Marilyn and Vita for sharing with us their personal story and their deep knowledge about breast and ovarian cancer and its relationship to the Jewish community. Both of you really tied it together and made it very meaningful about what the role of our little community is in supporting people and acknowledging people who are dealing with any kind of cancer. I mean, I think it's just a devastating illness that we haven't quite tackled yet. So with that, I'm going to say Shabbat Shalom. I'm Johanna Shore. I'm a member of the Temple Board, and on behalf of Congregation Kol Ami, I want to wish you all a Shabbat Shalom and welcome. For those who have never been here before, could you raise your hand just to see? Oh my gosh, wow. Well, hey, welcome. I hope you think about coming back. I know you're here for a wedding, but please consider coming back. That's great. So a lot of stuff is happening. A lot of activities are, of course, happening around this synagogue. So our introduction to Judaism began Sunday, October 3rd, so it's a couple weeks ago. But it's not too late to join, and it's an 18-week class, meets on Sundays at 10:15. And if you need a refresher class or you know someone interested in conversion, this is a perfect class. And please, you can register online. This past Tuesday, Kol Ami is the first session of an amazing 3-week class with Professor Paul Lips, who is on the faculty of Tel Aviv University. I listened to it, and watched it. It was great. And his upcoming topics will include Israel and the Middle East challenges and opportunities, and wars of swords and wars of words. It's hard to say. Create a piece of peace. It meets online Tuesdays at 11. If you don't get a chance to see it, it's recorded and you could watch it on YouTube. It's really it's wonderful educational information. Be sure to tune in on Rabbi Levi's new online series, Exploring the Siddur, this Thursday morning at 9:30. It'll be live streamed from our website. If you missed last week's session, you can join live. And it's also available. God, all this stuff is available. If you're working and you can't take the time off, it's on YouTube. You go look it up. Lunch and Learn with Rabbi Eger returns on Thursday, October 21st at 12. This is great. We used to have to go downtown and sit in a law office, on the 59th floor of some building, right?
Right.
And go through security. But now we can just tune it in at home. It's great. Saturday morning, next Saturday morning, I'm going to do this, is Rabbi Levi is going to do a hike. Hi, Franklin Canyon, it's where I go all the time, it's great. So look for information on our website. Finally, SOVA, the food drive, always needs contributions. And food pantries are especially challenged at this time. And we hope to continue to support them as we move from summer to fall. As always, we hope you'll keep up to date on all that's happening at Kol Ami, and visit our website, kol-ami.org. That's kol-ami.org. And you can register for all these activities online, get a sense of who the staff is, who the clergy are, and who we are. So please do, especially for these people who are here tonight for the first time, check it out. It's a great community. So with that, I'm going to say Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Hi, Rabbi.
Thank you.
And have a good evening.
Thank you, Johanna. Shabbat Shalom. Friends, we're going to turn to page 586 now in our prayer books as we rise for the Aleinu L'Shabeach prayer. Aleinu L'Shabeach Adon HaKol, Latei Gedula Leotzer Breishi, Shelo Asanu Ki Goyei Aratzon, Velo Samadu Kemishpechot Adam Ha, Shelo Sam Chelkeinu Kahem, Vegor Aleinu Kechol HaBonam, Vanachnu Korim Umishtachavim Ubodim Lifnei Melech Malchei HaMlachim HaKadosh Tonight we're observing the Yortzites of Phil Papel, father of Stan Papel, Rosario Rinaldi, grandfather of Russell Lyon, Mark Lillyveld, husband of Addie Lillyveld, and father of Phil Lillyveld, whose Yortzite plaques are lit in loving remembrance. We're also recalling the Yortzites of Rona Paymar, mother of Andrea Paymar, Seymour Margolin, Uncle Ricky Bander, Cy Ehrlich, father of Gail Ehrlich, Robin Tabek Ariel, friend of Stephanie Small, Yeva Gomberg, aunt of Lily Lukowski, Uriel Masad, husband of Andrea Paymar, Alan Weiner, brother of Robert Weiner, and Nancy Kaufman, mother of Michael Kaufman. We're calling on our Kaddish this year Cecile Sommerfeld, Marcia Sherman, Desiderio Pacheco, Ruth Kendall, Margaret Gohari, Jeffrey Blank, Robert Martinez, Robert Weems, Adele Habibi, Sarah Klein, Francis Schiff, Lynn Ehrlich McCauley, Muriel Steicher, Marie Cecile Rouveau, Ava Weinberger, Sandra Smith, Jack Ader, Esther Richmond, Mary Wilson, Josh Markowitz, Vincent Gabriel, Steve Mormon, Brent Michaels, Claude Casalino, Jeb Stewart Robertson, Barbara Rubin, Jill Dowler, Allison Schurz, Rochelle Kaminsky, Alan Eckoby, Gary Rosenfeld, Stephen May, Herbert Lenk, Jack Salzberg, Paul Rush, Hanum Bashi, Michael Epstein, Marvin Keller, Mark Levin, Rick Gould, Erwin Citron. If there are others that you are recalling tonight, if you would like to say their name aloud or write it in the chat, we'd be happy to remember them in our memorial prayers. The memories of our loved one are surely with us on this night. Page 598, we join together in prayer. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, v'yamah divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach leolam olamei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudshah b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlomo rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'kol yishvei tevel v'imru amen. May the one who teaches peace in the highest of heavens help us to make peace here on earth with one another and grant eternal peace to those who have died, and together let us all say, Amen.
Say shalom b'mromav, say shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
Again, thank you to Marilyn Ader, to Vita from Norai from City of Hope. We thank you for enlightening us and bringing us light and learning, not only from experience, but also from the encouragement, Vita, to pay attention and to get screened and to learn what our connection is as a Jewish community. We wish to Jeremy and to Devin on this Shabbat before your Jewish wedding. We wish you continued love and strength and success, surrounded by your wonderful parents and family that are here together, and that we hope that the day will be a day that will not only be emblazoned in your hearts, but you will continue to add strength to each other and strength to the world, and continue to be a blessing to one another. And for all of us who are gathered here together in person, and all who are gathered online, we hope that this Shabbat has brought a moment of respite from the craziness of the world, and that you can continue to carry with you that little place of shalom that we just sang about, that place of shalom in your heart that you can share with one another. Or Chadash al Zion Ta'ir, Or Chadash al Zion Ta'ir. May a new light shine upon Zion, and may that be the light of peace and of love. Shabbat Shalom. Good Shabbos, everyone. Thank you to David Kaminsky. Thank you to Travis for being with us at Congregation Kol Ami here in West Hollywood. And thank you for everybody online for joining us. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.